Imagine a brotherhood born in silence, dressed not in royal silk but in rough wool and iron, sworn not to luxury but to obedience, poverty, and war. At first glance, they should have been nothing more than armed monks, strange, severe, and temporary, and yet, within less than 2 centuries, they became one of the most powerful organizations in Christendom. Kings borrowed from them, popes trusted them, pilgrims depended on them, armies feared them. Then, just as suddenly, they were hunted, accused, tortured, and destroyed. That alone would make the Knights Templar one of history's great mysteries. But the real question begins where their story turns dark. What were they protecting that made them so dangerous? Was it merely treasure, sacred relics, political secrets, or something even more explosive? Something powerful enough to make kings tremble and the church turn on its own holy warriors? Today, the Templars live in the imagination as symbols of hidden vaults, forbidden knowledge, lost relics, and conspiracies buried beneath stone. Popular culture has wrapped them in layers of myth, the Holy Grail, secret bloodlines, underground chambers, forgotten maps, coded churches. But beneath the legends, there's something even more compelling: the fact that the Templars really did operate at the intersection of faith, war, money, and power. And when any institution stands at that crossroads long enough, it begins to collect not only wealth, but secrets. That is why the question matters. The Templars were not just soldiers of God. They were guardians of roots, fortresses, archives, pilgrims, political alliances, and perhaps something no one else was meant to see. To understand how such a secret could exist, you have to return to the aftermath of the First Crusade. In 1099, Jerusalem fell to the Crusaders, and for Christian Europe, the city was no longer just a distant holy dream. It was now a fragile possession, soaked in blood, surrounded by enemies, and tied to the prestige of Christendom itself. Pilgrims from across Europe began making the dangerous journey eastward, crossing hostile roads haunted by raiders, mercenaries, and opportunists. To protect them, a small group of knights emerged in the early 12th century under the leadership of Hugues de Payens. Their mission sounded simple enough: defend pilgrims on the road to Jerusalem. But history is full of institutions that begin with one purpose and grow into something far more consequential. These first knights were housed, according to tradition, on the Temple Mount, the very place many in the medieval world associated with the ruins of the Temple of Solomon. That detail matters because from the beginning, the Templars were not merely stationed in a military outpost. They were symbolically positioned atop one of the most charged sites in religious memory. For Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike, this was sacred ground layered with prophecy, kingship, destruction, and divine presence. Now imagine a military religious order living there for years, with access to foundations, tunnels, chambers, and buried remnants that no ordinary pilgrim would ever see. This is where the first shadow enters the story, because once the Templars were linked to Solomon's temple, the idea that they might have found something beneath it became almost inevitable. Whether they dug systematically or not remains uncertain. The records are frustratingly incomplete, and that absence has only fed the mystery. But what is striking is how quickly the order rose after those early years in Jerusalem. They began poor, so poor, in fact, that their early seal showed 2 knights riding a single horse, an image meant to symbolize humility and scarcity. Yet within a surprisingly short period, they gained papal backing, noble patronage, land grants, exemptions, fortresses, and extraordinary international influence. Europe did not merely tolerate them, it elevated them. It poured wealth into their hands. That kind of ascent always raises a question. What made them so valuable? Was it only their military discipline, or did they offer something greater? Intelligence, access, prestige, or a sacred aura enhanced by whatever they may have discovered in Jerusalem? The Church gave them remarkable privileges. The Templars answered directly to the Pope. They could move across borders more freely than most men. They could collect funds, administer estates, and build a network of command stretching from England and France to the Levant. In time, they evolved into something astonishingly modern, a transnational institution with military capacity, religious legitimacy, financial infrastructure, and political autonomy. They were monks who fought, bankers who prayed, warriors who archived. A king might wear a crown, but a king was still tied to his territory. The Templars were tied to an idea, and ideas travel farther than kingdoms. That made them useful. It also made them threatening. Their headquarters, fortresses, and preceptories were not random outposts. They formed a system: roads, ports, castles, treasuries, and correspondence channels connected them across continents. If a pilgrim deposited wealth in one Templar house in Europe, he could withdraw value farther east without carrying all of his silver through bandit country. If a monarch needed credit, the Templars could provide it. If the Pope needed trusted agents, they were available. They guarded not only roads, but movement itself, of money, letters, intelligence, and influence. This matters because once an order controls sacred travel and financial trusts, it begins to see the hidden architecture of power. It learns who is desperate, who is lying, who is rich, who is exposed, who is plotting, and who is vulnerable. That alone can become a form of treasure more dangerous than gold. And still, the legends circle back to Jerusalem, to tunnels, to relics, to Solomon. Why? Because medieval people did not think like modern bureaucrats. Sacred objects were not decorative curiosities, they were power. A relic could legitimize a church, enrich a city, inspire an army, or elevate a ruler's claim to divine favor. If the Templars found even fragments linked, or believed to be linked, to biblical antiquity, the implications would have been enormous. Imagine relics associated with the temple, ancient texts, ritual objects, or records touching the deepest layers of Judeo-Christian memory. Even if such finds were misunderstood, exaggerated, or partially legendary, their symbolic value alone could transform the Templars from mere protectors into custodians of sacred authority. And sacred authority, once combined with money and armies, becomes something kings watch carefully. But perhaps what they were protecting was not one object, but a convergence of things. A guarded archive, diplomatic knowledge, financial leverage, strategic maps, relics whose authenticity mattered less than their political value. Or perhaps a set of truths no single ruler could safely control. Remember what the Templars represented. They were close enough to the East to encounter older traditions, older ruins, older memories, and older rivalries. They stood at the seam between Latin Christendom and the Islamic world, between crusading myth and logistical reality. In such a position, they would have encountered more than battlefield reports. They would have heard rumors, read accounts, negotiated ransoms, handled gifts, managed estates, and perhaps collected knowledge that did not fit comfortably into official narratives. This brings us to the most dangerous possibility of all, that the Templars' true secret was not mystical, but structural. They may have been protecting a system powerful enough to rival kings. By the 13th century, they had become wealthy, disciplined, and unusually independent. Their vows made them appear humble, but their network gave them reach. Their devotion made them appear pure, but their privileges made them hard to control. Their public image was holiness, armed with steel, but beneath that image stood ledgers, letters, fortresses, and obligations owed by rulers. This is often how history hides its deepest secrets, not in glowing artifacts, but in institutions that know too much, own too much, and answer to few. Then the world began to shift against them. The Crusader position in the Holy Land weakened. Fortresses fell, pressure mounted, and once the dream of permanent Christian rule in Jerusalem began to collapse, the Templars lost the battlefield mission that had justified so much of their exceptional status. An order created to defend the road to the Holy City now faced a devastating question. What is a sacred military order for when the sacred war is being lost? At exactly the same time, European monarchs were becoming stronger, more centralized, and less willing to tolerate powerful institutions beyond their grasp. Among those rulers was Philip IV of France, cold, calculating, burdened by debt, and increasingly resentful of forces he could not dominate. Philip needed money. He needed control, and he needed enemies he could morally destroy. The Templars, with their wealth, autonomy, and mysterious reputation, offered all three, but accusations of greed alone would not have been enough to bring them down. The charges had to be darker, more spiritual, more disgusting. more unforgettable: heresy, blasphemy, secret initiation rites, idol worship, corruption hidden behind sanctity. The kind of allegations that do not merely discredit an institution, they poison memory itself. And this is where the hidden secret of the Templars becomes inseparable from the campaign against them. Because once a king decides to annihilate a holy order, he must make the world believe that what they were guarding was not sacred truth, but sacred corruption. On Friday, October 13, 1307, the blow fell across France. Templars were arrested almost simultaneously in a coordinated operation of astonishing precision. That alone tells you something. Kings do not move that fast against a religious order unless the decision has already been sharpened into inevitability. Men who had once worn the cross into battle were seized like criminals in the dark, their houses searched, their records taken, their bodies handed over to interrogation. The accusations were monstrous: denial of Christ, obscene rituals, the kissing of initiates in degrading places, the worship of a mysterious head or idol, moral depravity hidden behind vows of holiness. Under torture, some confessed; under fear, others broke. Under pressure, words were forced into shapes the king needed. But the deeper question remained buried beneath the spectacle. Why was Philip so determined? Not merely to weaken the Templars, but to erase them? It is tempting to say the answer was simple greed. And yes, greed was there. Philip IV was deeply indebted, and the Templars were wealthy. Their assets, estates, and financial machinery were a prize. But greed alone does not explain the theatrical ferocity of the assault. If Philip wanted only money, there were less dangerous ways to seize it. What made the Templars intolerable was that they embodied an alternative structure of trust. They were a network that kings used but did not own. They were armed, disciplined, transnational, and legitimized by the papacy. Worse still, they carried an aura of mystery that could not be easily measured or controlled. A debtor can hate his creditor, but a king fears something more than debt. He fears institutions that stand between himself and total sovereignty. And so the charges became spiritual. Weapons, the alleged idol, sometimes described as a head, sometimes a figure, sometimes something too vague to define, became especially important because once the Templars could be linked to secret objects of devotion, their mystery was no longer merely suspicious, it was diabolical. The language of heresy allowed Philip to convert political necessity into moral emergency. This is one of history's cruelest patterns. When raw power wants destruction, it first clothes itself in righteousness. The Templars were not to be presented as inconvenient creditors or autonomous soldiers. They had to become enemies of God. Only then could their annihilation feel like purification rather than seizure. But look more closely, and you begin to sense how unstable the accusations were. The testimonies varied. The confessions were extracted. The details often collapsed under scrutiny. Even Pope Clement V, pressured and frightened, hesitated before fully endorsing the French king's narrative. This hesitation matters because it suggests that the case was never entirely secure. The Templars were not openly defeated on a battlefield of evidence. They were crushed beneath the combined weight of royal will, papal weakness, fear, and the emotional force of scandal. Their secret, whatever it was, may not have been one hidden relic glowing in a chamber. It may have been something more dangerous to a centralizing monarchy, a body of wealth, knowledge, and symbolic prestige too independent to survive. And yet the legends will not die, because something in the story keeps pulling the imagination. Back underground, did they smuggle out treasure before the arrests? Did ships leave French ports under cover of darkness carrying gold, relics, and archives? Did they hide records in Scotland, Portugal, or beneath remote chapels? These questions endure because history leaves openings where certainty fails. We know that some Templar properties were seized. We know the order was formally dissolved. We know many of its members were imprisoned, absorbed into other orders, or disappeared into obscurity. But we also know that organizations do not survive across continents for 2 centuries without developing habits of secrecy, protection, and contingency. It would have been stranger if they had not hidden things. Among the most haunting possibilities is that what they protected was documentary, records of transactions, debts, and negotiations that exposed the inner workings of Christian Europe. Think about what their archives might have contained: loans to monarchs, papal correspondence, intelligence from the Holy Land, property registers, military logistics, names of patrons, details of alliances, perhaps even sensitive diplomatic exchanges with Muslim rulers. Such documents could be more dangerous than relics. A relic can inspire devotion. An archive can destroy reputations. If the Templars held enough evidence of how kingdoms really worked, how fragile, corrupt, indebted, and transactional they truly were, then their secrecy would itself become a threat. But perhaps the most unsettling answer is that the Templars were protecting an idea born in the Crusades and sharpened by discipline, that there could exist on earth a sacred order whose loyalty to God, to its mission, and to its own internal command outranked loyalty to kings. In theory, that made them servants of Christendom. In practice, it made them hard to domesticate. The medieval world could tolerate power if that power had a clear place in the hierarchy. Kings ruled realms, bishops ruled dioceses, popes ruled the universal church. But the Templars were harder to classify. They crossed all those lines. They fought like nobles, answered like monks, operated like financiers, and moved like a state within the body of Christendom. That ambiguity was power. It was also fatal. Consider how many forces converged against them. The crusading ideal was weakening. The Holy Land was slipping away. Monarchies were centralizing. Papal prestige had been damaged. Debt was rising. Suspicion toward closed institutions was growing. In such an atmosphere, the Templars no longer looked like heroic guardians of the sacred frontier. They looked like a relic of an older world still holding money, castles, and privileges no king wanted to leave untouched. This is why their destruction feels both political and symbolic. Philip did not merely want their assets. He wanted to prove that no independent sacred power could endure above the crown. In destroying the Templars, he was not only seizing wealth, he was disciplining the very idea of autonomy. Then came the final theater of obliteration, trials, public humiliation, long imprisonments, the slow breaking of a reputation once bathed in holiness. And at the end of that road stood Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master. Burned in 1314 on an island in the Seine, he died not as a knight charging on horseback, but as a condemned man consumed by flames before a watching city. There is something almost ritualistic in that ending. The order that had once guarded roads to Jerusalem now disappeared in smoke at the center of one of Europe's greatest kingdoms. Yet even in death, de Molay refused the full script written for him. His resistance, his final defiance, helped transform the Templars from disgraced suspects into martyrs of political destruction. In the historical imagination, this is why the Templars continue to haunt the modern mind. Not because every myth about them is true, but because the pattern is true. A holy order rises. It gathers trust, wealth, and sacred prestige. It acquires access to things others do not see. Then, once it becomes too strong, too rich, too obscure, and too independent, it is accused of darkness and destroyed in the name of purification. The details may blur, but the logic is clear. Whenever power and sanctity fuse too tightly, mystery follows, and whenever mystery surrounds concentrated power, fear eventually comes looking for blood. The Templars did not need to possess the Holy Grail to become dangerous. They only needed to stand at the place where people believed hidden truth might be found. So what were they protecting? The most honest answer is this: probably not one secret, but a layered inheritance of strategic, sacred, and institutional power. They may have guarded relics, they may have guarded archives. They almost certainly guarded financial systems, operational knowledge, and internal discipline. They protected roads and strongholds, yes, but also confidence. And confidence is one of the rarest currencies in history. Pilgrims trusted them. Nobles endowed them. Popes empowered them. Once you become the keeper of trust on that scale, you also become the keeper of invisible leverage. That may be the hidden secret at the heart of the order. Not a single object in a hidden chamber, but an entire architecture of authority too valuable and too independent to be allowed to endure. In the end, the Templars were destroyed because they had become more than soldiers. They had become guardians of sacred movement, sacred wealth, sacred memory, and perhaps sacred ambiguity itself. They stood atop one of the holiest places in the world, grew rich in the name of holy war, learned how kingdoms financed their ambitions, and answered ultimately to a spiritual authority beyond kings. That combination was combustible, and when Philip struck, he did what frightened rulers have always done. He turned secrecy into guilt, power into suspicion, and sanctity into accusation. Whether the Templars protected relics, archives, or truths, no ruler wanted left intact. One fact remains: they were not destroyed because they were irrelevant. They were destroyed because they had become too important to leave alive. And that is the final irony of the Templars. If they had been poor, transparent, and powerless, no one would still be asking what they protected. It is precisely because their rise was so extraordinary, their privileges so unusual, their silence so enduring, and their fall so violent that the question still burns. Beneath every legend about hidden treasure lies a simpler, darker possibility. The Templars knew too much, held too much, and belonged fully to a world where faith and force had become indistinguishable. In that world, the greatest secret was never only what lay beneath Solomon's temple. It was the realization that institutions built to defend the sacred can become so powerful that the sacred is no longer enough to save them. So when you ask what the Templars were protecting, perhaps the answer is not buried in gold, relics, or myth alone. Perhaps they were protecting a dangerous concentration of trust, memory, wealth, and holy legitimacy, the kind of thing that can outlive kings, embarrass empires, and terrify those who cannot control it. The temple may have given them their name, Jerusalem may have given them their aura, and Christendom may have given them their mission. But in the end, what doomed them was not only what they found, if they found anything at all, it was what they became. And sometimes, in history, that is the most fatal secret of all.